Hulse,
There's nothing
a
funny
regular
about
on the
the tools
show,
of
not as much
capitalism.
lately, but he's one of the first people I covered on Chud Watch months back. And Elliot is an interesting individual. He is purportedly some sort of health trainer. He's certainly in shape, and I'm sure he could give you really good advice on how to get some protein and bulk up. However, when it comes to advice on general life stuff and politics, he's not so great. He's sort of a trad con. On top of that, he's been peddling in sort of conspiracy theories lately. Although, he's more chuddy than he is Tinfoil Tuesday, if you know what I mean. But either way, this is his video entitled, Filling Your Porn Hole with God. I'd like to hear more about this porn hole and what I can stick in it. So let's take a look.
You're born alone, you're going to die alone. You're going to have ups and downs in life. There are going to be people around you. Sometimes there are going to be people not around you in life. You're going to have successes and you're going to have failures. You're going to have wealth and you're going to have poverty. You're going to be hot. You're going to be cold. Throughout every single one of those circumstances, from young to old, there was and will always be one man walking beside you, and that is God.
Yo, Elliot.
Yo, Elliot, I've been trying to quit porn for a couple of years now. I've made progress in reducing my consumption, but a problem keeps arising that keeps me from quitting for good. In the past, I would have described it as loneliness, but more recently, I see it as neediness. I crave intimacy, love, and respect. I feel like I am dependent on them. I use porn to numb those feelings away. I don't have a woman right now, and I'm focused on building my career. How can I be more like a monk and get rid of this neediness?
Okay. I think the approach to this question is sort of wrong in the first place in the way this person is asking the question. If you have a legitimate, addiction to porn or sex or whatever, in this case it's porn, that's a real thing, and that's something that you should address. But I think the idea of him looking for, as he put it, how can I be more like a monk in addressing this neediness? And I think the idea being, how can I basically suppress this feeling I'm having? And I think that's an unhealthy way of probably approaching that problem. It seems to me that you should be able to address the fact that, oh, I'm feeling this want for intimacy or this want for connection with another person, and I'm filling that void with porn or whatever it happens to be. That's an unhealthy coping mechanism. So instead of trying to avoid these impulses altogether, I think it would make sense probably to channel those impulses into something productive or positive. I assume that Elliot here is going to say something along the lines of, oh, you need to find God, and God will help you suppress those urges, or God will give you a connection, whatever, that will fill that hole for you. And I don't think that's healthier advice. I mean, it might be healthier than, a porn addiction, but I don't think that's the healthiest modality of handling those issues. Those issues could be dealt with in making real connections with other people. And certainly, you could arguably do that at a church, if that's what Elliot's going to get into. I'm not a fan of church. I'm not religious, but a lot of people are, and that's fine. Not really my business as long as they're not hurting other people. But I would hope that that's going to be his focus here, is making real connections with real people, because that seems to be the thing that you're trying to cover up with the porn, is the fact that you want these connections, real human connections with other people, at least from what they seem to say.
So you're right. You said so many things in that question that is so right. And your insight is amazing. So let's pick that apart for a moment. You realize that you crave love, right? Love, respect, intimacy. And it is the neediness for that is driving your desire to, like you say, numb yourself. Even that, you put it good that way, because an orgasm is has a numbing capacity, a numbing agent. When a man ejaculates, his body releases oxytocin, which kind of makes us feel chill. You feel a little cozy and relaxed and okay for a moment, right? while you're orgasming, but then afterwards you feel guilty, right?
Oh, that's not healthy. That's not healthy at all. If you're experiencing shame feelings after you ejaculate, and I understand what Elliot's talking about, because I grew up in a religious school, right? That found like sexuality in any way evil. Now I don't know if there's some sort of actual evolutionary like thing that when people with penises ejaculate, they get some sort of guilty feeling. But I had that for a while when I was younger, when I was, in adolescence or whatever, and I was, discovering, you know. However, as I grew up, I had other feelings that were difficult because, of course, me being trans and not liking my genitalia. But in terms of the specific guilt that Elliot is talking about, that went away as I grew older and learned to be more comfortable with the... I'm trying to skirt around words as much as possible. As I got more comfortable with self-love, let's say. So I don't know, it feels like maybe a learned thing, especially if you come from like a religious background, but I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. Baha says she had the same gut feeling when she was younger and exploring sexuality. Yeah, so it must be a thing. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a little weird if you're, and I shouldn't say weird, I feel like it's maybe a little unhealthy if you're the age of Elliot Hulse and you're still feeling those feelings of guilt. That went away when I was like 14, 15, right? Not however old Elliot is. I don't know. Seems like that's something he should probably make an effort to deal with, because you should be comfortable enough with your sexuality that you aren't feeling guilty after, orgasming.
So this need for intimacy, for love and respect, I understand that. And the fact that you don't have a woman that's not being fulfilled by what I'm going to say is most men's fleshly god. And women become a fleshly god. So...
hear that, fellow women? Fleshy gods.
Why do I say that? Because that intimacy, that love and that respect that you want can only be temporarily...
flesh for the flesh god, blood for the blood moon.
projected on a woman, because we know that a woman is a flesh and bone beast just like you and me. And that a lot of times she's going to fail. And if we put our trust in them, we put our faith in a woman to fulfill all our intimacy, all our love, and all our respect, we're going to be failed anyway. So a lot of time, and that's not to say that women are bad, and I'm not talking down on relationships. What I'm pointing to is that we have to consider the divine God, the heavenly God, that is the only thing. He's the only one that can fulfill our true desire for intimacy, love, and respect. Because you're born alone.
Is God gonna fuck me? I just want to be clear before we get into this conversation, because I don't think I'm gonna consent to that one. No, thank you.
You're born alone. Right, you're gonna die alone. You're gonna have ups and downs in life. There are going to be people around you sometimes.
Thanks for hosting, Pseudo-Sapien.
Not around you in life. You're going to have successes and you're going to have failures. You're going to have wealth and you're going to have poverty. You're going to be hot. You're going to be cold. Throughout every single one of those circumstances, from young to old, there was and will always be one man walking beside you, and that is God. And this is what the monk does. The monk...
I don't know, man. Seems a little, To me, that sounds like what Elliot would describe as deviant, right? One man walking beside you for your entire life into eternity. Now that's great. I love me a gay ship. Don't get me wrong. I'll take that shit, okay? However, and can I just point out also... when I have the mug of tea is something that I feel the need to fidget with. I'm a prop person. You guys know that. You know I like my props. This is too much power for me. This is too much power. Let's see if I can not touch that for at least a minute. Anyway, my point is, it's interesting that someone who's homophobic, like Elliot, who doesn't like people in the LGBT community, would be talking to this person about their porn addiction by saying, hey, you should be in love with a man called God. It's just a little strange.
Monk, so I love that you...
Do you want you to send a fidget cube? I already have. Remember these? I've had the cubes too, but, you know, I'm fine.
You say that. How do we become a monk and get rid of the neediness? What a monk does is he marries. He's married
Addicted,
with God.
thank you for gifting 10 subs to the community.
He's married with the Creator. He gives all of his attention. He gives all of his questions. He gives all of his need for intimacy. He gives and receives all love and respect from the one that knows him best, and that is God the Father. It's a shame that we live in a world that has rejected the Father to such a degree, because it leaves a lot of us with a void and a loneliness that we then try to either numb or we try to fill with other people, i.e. women, right? Or with drugs, or with video games, or with all kinds of distractions. Even like, you know, hustle culture is a distraction, you know, just work, put your head down and work. It's such a distraction from the loneliness that we have. But when you're a monk, check out how a monk lives. It would be really fascinating. Read this book.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
By this guy, Saint Brianashov. He has got one called The Arena, which is a book written for monks. Monks they do their best to live in perfect uniformity with God's will and in steady communion with him. And that means that...
Do you think monks don't jerk it? Because monks definitely jerk off. Like, there's 0% chance that monks don't masturbate, right? Nuns, I'm sure, masturbate. I'm sure. What are you gonna do? Oh, they're gonna brew beer. They're gonna I'm thinking of like 15th century monks for some reason. They're gonna brew beer. They're gonna copy a Bible passage because the printing press hasn't been invented yet, and then they're gonna masturbate all night. It's the only thing they got going on. They'll probably read the Bible somewhere in there too. But then they're gonna masturbate. They're gonna masturbate raw because they don't have any lube.
They reject all pleasures. They reject all passions. They reject.
That's okay. Jokes aside, that's objectively untrue. Monks do not reject all passions. Again, I made the comment about like beer brewing. Monks were famous in certain parts of Europe for brewing just amazing beer because they had all day to do it. I mean, they'd spend their time, of course, in prayer and study of scripture and stuff. And of course, if they were some of the people who like copied scripture, they'd do that, and I'm sure they'd have jobs around the monastery, but they'd also like brew beer. Do you think they didn't like love that? And yeah, Baha's example, Gregor Mendel, and his experiments with pea plants that showed sort of phenotypical hereditivity. Is that the word? Hereditivity? Heredity? That'd be the word. Phenotypical heredity in pea plants. Like, that's really, really interesting. People do these things. Like, what? Do you think they're sitting there all day like, I hate my life? No. People who are monks or whatever, they lead a very different life. Not a life I understand, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm not religious, but that's their choice, and they're allowed to enjoy that life just because it's different than the life that other people live.
All distractions. They reject everything. They take a vow of poverty, they take a vow of chastity, and they take a vow of obedience.
Right, those things don't mean they're miserable, though. You could have no possessions and have, not have romantic sexual relationships with others and be happy. I wouldn't be, but they are, and that's fine, and that's their choice. There's nothing wrong with that.
They give everything else away and live only for the Creator. And that sounds crazy, don't it? Right? Especially in our atheistic world, which tells us,
we very much don't live in an atheistic world. Over 5% of the planet is religious in some way. And Christianity, which is what he's talking about, is the dominant religion on planet Earth. Not everywhere, obviously, but if we're talking about strictly which religion has the most adherents, it's Christianity. Behind that, I think it's Islam. And then I'm actually not sure what's behind that. I know in terms of Abrahamic religions, of course, Judaism, but Judaism isn't as big globally, I don't think, as Christianity and Islam. I don't know what would be third. Hinduism, maybe? I'm not sure. Either way, and Buddhism, yeah. The point being, atheism is a very small subset of planet Earth. The vast majority of people are not atheists. What?
There is no God. There is no creator. There is no comforter. That's what Jesus calls the Holy Spirit. There is no comforter. There is no Father, Heavenly Father that loves you from...
Okay, well, you're describing very specifically Judeo-Christian, mostly Christian conception of the universe and their deity, right? You don't need to believe in that sort of deity specifically, that sort of monotheistic father deity, to be a theist, right? You could be a theist and not be Christian. That's not like again, we mentioned Hinduism and Buddhism, religions that are very different than Christianity, but they're still religions. They're not atheists.
From eternity. That means before you and after you. He knows you and loves you ever since. And always will. There's another really good book. I think you guys would love this book. It's a very short book, and it's also available on YouTube as an audiobook. It's called Practicing the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence, who's a monk. He lived in a monastery. I've been reading a lot about monasteries lately. Who's living in a monastery. And because even for the monks, it's difficult because you can't see God, right? The same way that a fish can't see the ocean because he's in it, he's breathing it, and it's all around him, is the same way for a human not to be able to notice God, especially when we're not paying attention.
Here's the thing, though. A fish, if it was intelligent enough, could measure that it was in water and therefore extrapolate that, well, there's nothing but water around me, so we must be in something that we'll call the ocean. That's all water. Fish are aware of the ocean. They're in it. You need to be able to measure the thing you're talking about if that's the metaphor you're going through. But you're not. So... And yes, air would be the appropriate comparison. But I understand what he's saying. It's just a bad comparison.
A fish that's paying attention might realize, there's this, I'm covered by, cuddled with, breathing in and through this presence that nourishes me, sustains me, is in me and around me. A fish that's paying attention is going to recognize the water. He's going to contemplate that.
I think you're giving too much intelligence to Again, fish are a huge, group of animals. I'm sure there's some intelligent fish, but I don't think there are fish with that level of thinking. I don't know. The metaphor's breaking apart.
But a fish that's just swimming around looking for shit to eat and eggs, right? Fish don't have sex, right? They have eggs. They drop eggs and drop seed on the eggs. Procreate, right? They're not going to notice it. And so what's required for a human being swimming in the ocean of God as we are is to stop and contemplate, consider, and conversate with God the Father. So this book by Brother Lawrence is about how he practices the presence of God, which is a challenging thing to do. We can read all we want. And I read a lot of religious stuff, spiritual stuff. We could pray, But unless we sense the presence of the Comforter, the Creator, God the Father, our pattern, love, intimacy.
Honestly, I think this is all pretty terrible advice for this person. This person is reaching out to Elliot because he has a actual, like, problem with impulse control in regard to pornography that's apparently affecting his life enough to write into someone like Elliot to get some advice. And all Elliot's done is go into, like, a sermon. That's not helpful. This isn't practical advice. It's a bunch of, like, nice fluffy words about Christianity. And that's, again, fine in a vacuum. It's fine if you're, like, a religious or you're a Christian or whatever. I'm not, but it's fine. But if you're trying to find real world solutions to your real problem, all this pap isn't going to help you. It's just like, oh, isn't God great? And God will help you with your problems. But the issue is, then let's say this guy does Elliot's advice and he gets very devout and he starts to, you know, believe in God and love God and all this stuff. But those urges aren't going to go away. This person is still going to have those urges because that religious belief isn't going to fill that intimacy hole that this person has. And then all he's going to have is religion and the problem that they have. And they're going to feel bad because they've been told that being religious is supposed to solve the problem that they had, but it isn't, thus exacerbating said problem and giving you a new problem that you feel guilty because you didn't solve it.
We're tricking ourselves into believing that we're alone. And it's a shame. It's a shame that the world doesn't. There was a time I'm reading also a lot about and noticing a lot of the value that was available in the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages were beautiful. The Middle Ages were amazing.
No,
now,
they okay. Okay, let me be clear about this one. No, the Middle Ages, there are plenty of things that are beautiful about the Middle Ages. You know, there are pieces of art and some discoveries. It's often colloquially called the Dark Ages, which is a bit of a misnomer because there were discoveries and wonderful things that happened in the Middle Ages. I wouldn't want to live there. Let me put it that way. Music, sure, but I don't want to be constantly smelling human shit and dying of the plague, you know? I don't want to live in that time period and constantly be embroiled in Catholic Protestant wars, okay? I don't want to deal with it. No, thank you. Nope, I'm good. If I'm lucky, I'll be living in a castle, cleaning up the chamber pots of the wealthy. No, thank you. Feudalism is not a fun thing.
No, because in secular society.
And then, of course, I gotta bring up the trans thing. I'll get caught wearing some lady's pantaloons, and then I'm gonna get burned at the stake for being a witch or something. I don't know.
We've been trained. Our schools are overrun by Marxists, so
sure.
Entire point is to make you not love God. We've been taught that, you know,
the Protestants were in the Renaissance. That's my fault then. Sorry. Other conflicts then. I don't want to get involved in a crusade. How about that? Wait, was that also the Renaissance? I don't know enough about European history.
Was wrought with superstition and darkness. A lot of times they call it the Dark Ages, right? And that prior to the Enlightenment, right, that people were just dumb. People were just dumb spiritual people, right? They believed in superstition, but that wasn't the case. The Middle Ages, it was dark because the reason why it was dark was not because of religion. The reason why it was dark is because they were constantly battling and trying to survive against the barbarians, against attacking tribes, against, you know, people that wanted to do them dirty. So there was a lot of wars. It was a tough time to live. But it's usually during those toughest times, like even for you in your life, Patrick, it's usually during the toughest times that we cultivate the greatest faith. And so sometimes, especially in our culture, right, things are so good. Things are so easy. Like, think about the fish swimming in the ocean. That if everything is handed to him, everything is available to him, everything is super easy and comfortable for him, he has no consideration for the graces of the ocean. There's no consideration for the love of the ocean, because especially if it's not even the ocean, it's like other fish saying, hey, buddy, we got all the food here. You just hang out with us and we'll give you food. Even in like this day and age where they're trying to like own air, own water, right?
That your problem would be with capitalism and Nestle on that one. That's not a... Didn't you just complain about Marxists, and then you're also complaining about people privatizing resources? That's a capitalism problem, but okay.
I think the guy that owns Nestle said like something to the degree that, like bodies of water should be privatized, and that like resources like that should be privatized. Maybe not, but it'd be like a fish trying to say, hey, we own the ocean and you owe your allegiance to us rather than the ocean itself. So anyway, I'm ranting a little bit, my man. I hope that helps you. I'm grateful for the fact that you recognize that it's a neediness and it's a craving for intimacy. The thing is, it's never, ever, 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 ever truly going to be fulfilled. Not by you, not by a real flesh and bone, blood, piss and spit.
What was his advice even? It was just Jesus. Jesus will solve the fact that you want to look at Big Tit Fuck 7 on Pornhub. I don't know.
Woman or anything else. But that which brought you here walks beside you and will see you on the way out. And that's the Creator. So I hope that helps, dude.
How would that even a little bit help?
Done.
How would that help even a little?
Here. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, you ought to know that it was a clip from one of my most recent sessions with my King Transformation student.
Interesting. He has a 1 million subscriber plaque, but this channel only has 800,000. He must have another channel or a previous channel that reached 1 million.
Where, among other things, we get together about 4 or 5 hours a week and speak on things related
Yeah, it's a real dog.
Kings in our lives in fitness, business, and with women. If you're interested in joining a like-minded group of men who are growing stronger every day in every way in this degenerate age, then it's real simple. Just follow me on Instagram and then DM me the word King, K-I-N-G.
What are his other channels? Strength Camp. Yeah, this is the one where it's just him doing just bodybuilding advice and stuff, I think, which is fine. He should probably stick to this stuff. Anyway, that's Elliot for today.